I've got Mr. David Wylly here from Medicare Solutions Network tonight to talk to us about getting started with Medicare. Go ahead and take it away.
There you go. Good evening. Thank you guys for coming. Sorry for the technical delays, but over the course of the next 4 hours, we're going to, what we want to do here tonight is talk about Medicare. Straight up, I'm an insurance salesperson. Don't let that throw you. As a broker, I represent most of the companies in the marketplace, but this isn't about sales tonight. It's about education. Been speaking here at the Aurora Library Eola branch for at least, it's got to be 12 years. It's been a long time. And we've been doing these outreaches to people, multiple libraries throughout the area, to try to help people understand what is Medicare, what does it do, what does it not do, what does it cover, what does it not cover, and what can we do about what it does not cover. And that always starts with the basics, and that's what we want to do here tonight, make you dangerous, give you enough information to realize that maybe you should dig a little bit deeper in addition to what you learned here tonight. When you first come to Medicare, you probably feel a lot like this guy. I know how it works. As you approach 65, your mailbox fills up with so much crap from the insurance companies, it almost tips over. Everybody, all your friends and family, they love you. They're very lovely people, and they want to tell you what to do. But the fact of the matter is most of them don't even know what they've done. And they've made decisions, and they're going to tell you that, and they may have chosen completely correctly, but what they chose could be totally different than what you choose. The beauty of this system, and Medicare is a beautiful system, is that it's totally customizable to whatever you want it to be, and we can change it through the aging process. You're never handcuffed to anything. We can make alterations as we age, and that could be very, very important, especially this time of year. We're heading into what we jokingly refer to as the most wonderful time of the year. It's Medicare open enrollment. We start October 15th, game on. You can already see ads on TV. Those are only going to ramp up. You're going to get another whole slew of mail, even though you made your decisions when you first came to Medicare and you thought, okay, I've got my stuff done. Well, now you're going to come to the open enrollment period. And what you're going to find out is you're going to get a whole new batch of mail, stuff that says your coverage is in jeopardy. Your coverage may be ending. Things are going to change. Not necessarily. Generally speaking, they won't change unless you want them to change. And all of the companies have to send you information about their annual changes. You should have received that by now. It's called, cleverly enough, your annual notice of change. Here we have a program that is multifaceted. And most people are coming here off of their group health insurance program from their employer. And that was a wonderful benefit. But they made all those decisions for you. And once a year, they bring you a program and say, here it is, take it or leave it. Well, that doesn't give you a lot of choice. It's only a relatively new phenomenon that they might have a PPO, an HMO, and a high deductible plan. Used to just be one size fits all. And everything that went into that program, deductible, co-insurance, co-payments, network, the drug benefit, all of that has been pre-decided for you, and they bring it to you, and it's a take it or leave it proposition. Now you actually get to make all those decisions. And initially it can be overwhelming, but if we break it down into bite-sized chunks, I promise you it makes a lot of sense. One of the things you're going to find out here in the world of Medicare is you've got a new best friend in the world. It's called Medicare. They're looking out for agents. They're looking over the insurance companies. They're watching out for you. And the cornerstone of Medicare is the ability to have wonderful information. This book comes out every year, cleverly entitled this year, Medicare and You, 2022. It's the encyclopedia of my industry. It's chock full of good information. All that stuff that's showing up in your mailbox is propaganda. It's advertising. It's long, unhappy, smiling people and glittering generalities, but very thin on any details. Your details are in here. What this does, two things incredibly well. It's chock full of knowledge. It's also a tremendous sleeping aid. If you have trouble dozing off, this thing will knock you down in pretty short order. It's a dry read. Use that as opposed to, I always love these Medicare for Dummies, 419 pages long. How dumb could it be? I mean, they really get you mired in minutia when what you want initially is a big picture. This is a great source of information. It's also backed up by the world's easiest phone number, 1-800-Medicare. Those guys are there 24 hours a day. They'll be taking your call like Jake from State Farm at 2 in the morning. They only take off 6 national holidays. So it's a wonderful source of information at 2 in the morning. If you've got questions, this is a world of customer service that you've never seen before. Total support, total backup, and complete information. Cornerstone of Medicare is information. The other cornerstone of Medicare would have to be robust competition and complete transparency. So we've got many companies that are fighting for your business, all standing in support of Medicare. So we need to find out what Medicare is. The book is great. The 800 number is great. The website is phenomenal. Medicare.gov. Write it down, please. People make the mistake of going to Medicare.com. Medicare.com is a sales site. Medicare.gov is the federal government. Pure source of information. The ability to comparison shop. The ability to make smart, fully informed decisions. And this is a click that we use this time of year a lot. Our ability every year to go in and reanalyze your drug program for the next year. Medicare supplies us with this health plan finder that allows us to enter your specific set of medications. This year, there's 23 drug programs. We don't know what it'll be next year. I hope it's more. Why? Because more programs leads to more competition, leads to driving prices down. If you'll utilize the advantages of what you've got here in this system, complete transparency and robust competition. But the ability to check drug programs every year, we can make mid-course adjustments. Stay away from websites if you can. They'll capture your information. And if you weren't getting enough mail or phone calls already, they will also ramp it up. What is Medicare? Pretty simply, it's the federal government program for folks over 65. It's under the banner of Social Security. So there's no Medicare offices. That's all run through the Social Security office. And those are two defined benefits. They're different. Medicare is a medical benefit that you could have without Social Security. You could have them together, but Medicare is the medical benefit. Social Security is where they give you back less money than you ever gave them, okay? So you could have one with the other or standing alone. It's for people over 65, and also we find people who could come to Medicare under 65. Those are sad stories. They've been declared medically disabled, or they've got kidney failure, or they've got Lou Gehrig's disease. There's certain triggers that would allow people under 65 to get Medicare. They represent unique challenges. We'll touch on that a little bit later. But the takeaway from this slide, what you've got to understand, is that original Medicare is really good. I'm going to say that a bunch of times tonight because it is this great program. But that sentence there, it was never designed to cover 100%. You were always expected to have skin in the game. Deductibles, co-insurance, co-payments. It's not a 100% program. And it's those gaps in coverage that we need to understand if we're going to make fully informed decisions about how we're going to cover ourselves in the future. This is where your journey begins. This is the Medicare card. It was just a few years ago that somebody figured out using your Social Security number as your code really wasn't very smart. So we've moved to random generated numbers and letters. And I would say most people, if we looked at our parents for sure, you'd find that they took their Medicare benefit the first day of the month in which they turned 65. That's the first time that you can get it unless you're declared medically disabled. But that first day of the month in which they turned 65, that used to be the finish line. Get your Medicare, retire, take your grandkids fishing. But over the last 15 years I've been in this business, we've seen dramatic changes in the timing of when people actually take their Medicare. Baby boomers, most of them at 65, are in better shape than their parents were at 55. And they're waiting to declare their benefits. Why? Well, A typically can't hurt you because A has no premium, but this B does have a premium. You'd be paying for your Medicare Part B if you went to this platform of having A and B in primary position. Now, most people, if they're going to continue to work, they're working at an employer that has more than 20 employees. If that's the case, that's called creditable coverage. Creditable coverage allows you to delay activating Medicare. That's not what my brother-in-law told me. My brother-in-law told me that if I don't sign up for Medicare, I'm going to be in real trouble. There's going to be penalties and lockouts and problems, and I got to sign up when I turn 65. No, you don't. If you've got creditable coverage, more than 20 people work there, you could choose to delay this Medicare. And many baby boomers do because they keep working. They like the money. They like the social interaction. They certainly like the benefits. And we see far too many people who get berated by friends and family to turn on A and B when they turn 65, and yet they continue to work. And their coverage at work is still primary. All you would have done in that instance is you'd be paying a Part B premium for something you were never going to use because the employer plan is in primary position. What we see is people who activate the B continue to work and only find out years later they never needed to do that, because they didn't make a fully informed decision. This is a place where you really want to understand the ground rules. A and B covers for different stuff. We're going to tear that apart in a second. For most people who continue to work, the A cannot hurt you because the A has no premium. You could add that alongside your coverage through work, and it wouldn't hurt you. It could have some additional benefits for you. But this Part B, you would want to hold off on if you continue to work and there's more than 20 people that work there. Understand the timing of activating Medicare. You certainly want to be ahead of the curve. Medicare would always start the first day of the month in which you turn 65, or if you hold off and work for another few years, but it would start the first day of the month. I don't care that you were born on the 23rd, your Medicare would go into effect on the first day of the month, or you retire on the 17th, doesn't matter. Medicare would go into effect the first day of the month that you turn on the Part B. But you can't even apply for Medicare more than 3 months out. The only way you get the card automatically is if you're receiving Social Security benefit payments. If you're getting disability payments or you turned on your Social Security early, they'll default and they'll go ahead and send you the card. But otherwise, they're going to wait to hear from you. They're not going to turn it on automatically. It's pretty simple to do this right online. The whole world of COVID opened up a whole new world of consumer interaction that is no longer having to be face-to-face, a wet signature on an original copy. No, everything now can be done online, but you couldn't sign up more than 3 months before your birth month. And if you did, you'd go effective on the first day of the month in which you turned 65. You missed it and you forgot about it. And so you signed up in your birth month. Well, that's okay. We're going to go effective the very next month. But you have to be careful of these out months because there can be delays in timing of getting your Part B. I never understand why people wait until the last minute, but I guarantee you there will be people in my office this next Thursday and Friday that want to go effective October 1st, and yet they've done nothing to turn on their Medicare. This isn't like the DMV where you leave with a temporary. This is where you want to be ahead of the curve to make sure that you're getting your Medicare in place when you want it in place. A has no premium, typically can't hurt you, but that B does have a premium. And that premium, the base premium this year is $170.10 per person. Understand the world of Medicare, everyone is treated individually. You've been married, couple. Now you come to Medicare, they want to break you up. Oh my God, why do they want to do that? Because your needs could be completely different than your wife's needs, right? We can customize a package for each of you. You may find frequently a husband and wife, as they approach Medicare, the wife is aging into Medicare, but the husband wants to continue to work. That's a beautiful thing. He could continue to cover her under his employer plan, but sometimes you'll find that Medicare is a better value than the coverage that she's getting through his plan. Usually people would look at whatever they're paying for their group health insurance and you'd think, oh, I'm paying $500 a month. That's $250 on her and $250 on him. No, typically in the employer plans, the employee is paying far less than the spouse. And sometimes we can break off the spouse because everything's individual and we can find better value lurking in the world of Medicare. That base premium, that $170.10, everybody pays that. But what happens is the government is looking at what you made and they're very happy to participate in your success. This is called IRMA, your income related monthly adjustment amount. IRMA is driven by MAGI, your modified adjusted gross income. And the way this looks, in 2022, the government can only see the paperwork that you filed in 2021. The paperwork you filed in 2021 actually reports what you made in 2020. In 2020, as a married couple filing jointly, did you make more than 182K? Well, congratulations, you've done very well. And the government is going to charge you more based upon your modified adjusted gross income. They look at it every year, but every year they're always looking 2 years back because of your paperwork. The government allows us to appeal these higher charges if you've experienced what they call a life-changing event. Maybe you killed it in 2020 and you did great in 2021. But now it's 2022 and you're retiring. That's the number one life-changing event that would allow us to appeal to Social Security and say, hang on a second, I need you looking at the reality of today, not what happened 2 years ago. That's all run through these Social Security offices. And they're not just going to take your word for it. There's a form and they're going to want some proof, but we do have the ability to drive these numbers down. Baby boomers are making a lot of decisions at this point that are going to have a sonic boom effect. I can't tell you how many clients I've run into that over the last couple of years, as the market took a dive, their financial planner said, I got a great idea. Let's move money from your 401k into a Roth, okay? A Roth is a tax free event in retirement, but the money you took out of the 401k and transferred into the Roth, you pay taxes on that because that's a taxable, that's like taking income. So they've moved money into a Roth without realizing that they're possibly veering into higher numbers. They've sold stock. They've had events that they don't realize until it's too late. I had clients about a month ago, they took money out of their 401k to help their daughter buy a condo. That was a lovely thing to do. They took out $5,000 too much and now they're paying the bump for the next year. That was a mistake. They didn't understand. They didn't make a fully informed decision. I love my government. I just don't want to give one more nickel than they're already taking. Not only will they bump you on the Medicare Part B, they'll also kick you on the drug program as well. These are in addition to what most people are paying the base premium. You look at individual, it's just half of what the filing jointly is. Let's be careful. There's 4 different parts of Medicare. We'll beat them all with a stick here tonight. A and B are going to form the foundation, that red, white, and blue card. You've got to have that to do anything else. Got to have Medicare A and B to make other decisions, to make your coverage complete. One thing you'd certainly want to look at would be a drug program. And it is true, if you don't take a drug program when it's first offered and you don't have creditable coverage, there can be penalties and there can be timing delays as we move further down the road. So it's important to understand the necessity of getting a drug program. And you might be interested in Medicare Part C, known as Medicare Complete. We also know them as Medicare Advantage programs. You know them as Joe Namath, Jimmy J.J. Walker, William Shatner, Lionel Richie now is going to be hawking these things. We have a pool going in my office. Who is the next washed up celebrity that's going to be hawking Medicare Advantage programs? And those commercials will be on incessantly as we move through this period of October 15th to December 7th. Got to make a move. If you're going to make a move by December 7th. People will call me December 8th, December 9th. I need to do something. And I say, I agree. How's next October for you? You've missed the boat. Got to be careful about that timing. But these parts of Medicare and everything that we're going to do is going to be predicated part of the starting line of having A and B. So let's tear apart. What are we getting from the federal government for $170.10 a month? I don't know if the thousands of people at home on Zoom have this, but you guys do here. This is what we call the roadmap to Medicare. And I like it because it is so simplistic. Most of the stuff that you get from insurance companies has chutes and ladders and logos and icons and color, and it makes no sense at all. Let's just boil it down to the basics. From the Goodyear blimp, we're looking down in the world of Medicare, and what you need to know is that you got to have A and B to do anything else. Okay, good. But we're going to see here in a second, A and B really good, but A and B nowhere near complete. Once we have A and B in place and we understand what A and B do, we're going to see pretty clearly there could be the need for additional coverage to make that A and B complete. And that additional coverage can take 2 different pathways. One pathway called Original Medicare, and that's where we've got the federal government, the program known as Medicare, in primary position. We love this because it is the largest PPO that you could possibly have. Any doctor, any hospital, anywhere in the United States, they take Medicare, you're in. Good, but not complete. We're going to add a Medicare supplement to make A and B more completer. And then we're going to look to add a drug program. And these 3 pieces working in concert would provide your coverage. One pathway called Original Medicare. Great for budgeting because we know what our monthly premiums are. Great for budgeting because we know exactly what our out-of-pocket exposure is. Good for budgeting and great from a network perspective because we've got any doctor, any hospital that takes Medicare. But this other pathway, this thing called Medicare Advantage, different idea. You literally put that Medicare card away. You're not going to use that card. That goes in the drawer. You still got to pay the Part B premium. And if you qualified for the bump up because of income, you're still going to pay that. But we're putting that card away because now we're going with a private insurance company. And a private insurance company is going to step in and run the show. By definition, Advantage programs will be more restrictive in who we can see and where we can go. That's not a bad thing, but the ads on TV, they don't say nothing about that. You're going to have co-payments for every little thing you do, with the possible exception of your wellness visits and maybe your primary care visits. But the other stuff, the MRI has a copay, the X-ray has a copay, the physical therapy each has a copay. But what they're doing is they're structuring network restrictions and co-payments for services that drive premiums down. And yes, Joe Namath is right. There are even Advantage programs that have a zero premium starting point, co-payments for services, but a different structure on how to handle your healthcare. We can start here. We could start here. We have an amount of flexibility as the years roll by to maybe move between them to a certain degree. But of those two pathways, both have their positives, both have their negatives, but both of them start with having Medicare A and B in place. So let's tear that apart. What are you getting from the federal government for your $170.10 a month? Start with Medicare Part A. A has no premium, but I always get a kick out of agents when they tell you it's free. It's not free. You paid a boatload in taxes. They just don't charge you more when you come to the party. But this Medicare Part A thing, what is that covering? One word, facilities. All of the buildings that you're going to come into contact with. That's what's going to bill up under Medicare Part A. Well, in the world of healthcare, no building could be more important than the hospital. But the hospital is not free. It's got a co-payment. And maybe from the hospital, you discharge into a skilled nursing facility. Medicare loves those. They don't have an MRI machine on every floor. They don't have an emergency room downstairs losing money hand over fist. But the skilled nursing facility is not free. It's got a co-payment. You've got a wonderful home health benefit. That's where we'll send a medical professional right to your front door and they'll help you get back on your feet. It's not long-term care. They're not coming over to mow the lawn or do the dishes. They're there to get you back on your feet and out the door where the doctors are cheaper. And the last part of it would be hospice. And whether that was in a freestanding hospice facility or the privacy of your own home, hospice is going to bill up under A as well. A has no premium, but remember, we said Medicare was never designed to cover 100%. You were supposed to be reaching into your pocket, and A has what we call exposure. That's what this looks like. Under original Medicare, and some people choose to just run with original Medicare. I don't recommend it, but it's certainly an option. But under original Medicare, Mr. and Mrs. Client, please be aware that if you go spend the night in the hospital under Medicare Part A, you have a copayment of $1,556. These are wacky numbers because they're graded for inflation each year. $1,556 for one night in the hospital. That's kind of scary, but hang on. It's not that bad because that $1,556 would actually cover you for 60 nights in the hospital and continues to cover you upon discharge. We talk about the poor soul who has a burst appendix. He goes into the hospital for 2 nights. First night he owes him the $1,556. The second night's covered. He made his copayment. And he goes home and things are going well. So 3 weeks later, he's got nothing better to do. He decides to have a heart attack and go back into the hospital. He's within his benefit window. He doesn't pay the $1,556 again. But on day 61, that whole thing resets. You could hit $1,556 several times in a year if you hit it just wrong. That's exposure, things that you're responsible for that Medicare doesn't pay fully. Skilled nursing, wonderful benefit. Medicare will cover us for up to 100 nights of skilled nursing. But that skilled nursing benefit is broken up. The first 20 nights, Medicare would cover you completely as long as you had a qualifying stay in the hospital. That means you're admitted for at least 3 nights. After the 20 days, Medicare says, okay, we're going to partner with you, but now there's a copayment, $195 a night for those additional nights. And 80 nights at $194.50, that can certainly add up. That's exposure. Home health services, wonderful benefit. But again, they're coming over for a handful of physical therapy visits or maybe wound dressing after a major medical event, maybe an infusion, but they're certainly not coming over for more than a short period of time. And they're just there for 15 minutes to a half hour to get you back on your feet. And hospice, I put down 5%, but that's hardly fair. Basically, Medicare covers almost everything, but there can be a very small copayment for the medications you take to remain comfortable before you pass away. There's A, no premium, but clearly exposure. Now we fire up B. B has a premium. Why? Because B is the majority of what you're actually going to be using. A is all of the buildings. B is everything that goes on in the buildings. A is facilities. B is services. All of your services are going to come up under B. So all of the doctors that you see, all the specialists that you see, they're going to bill up under Medicare Part B. There was an anesthesiologist one time knocked you out so a surgeon could operate on you. Wait a second, that happened in the hospital. Yeah, I know, but that was the facility charge, right? That's the gurney and the bright lights. That's the operating theater. But your services, your labor charges are all coming up under B. All of your lab work, everything from a blood test to a biopsy, all of your diagnostic testing, that's the expensive alphabet soup, EKG, EEG, MRI, CAT scan, X-ray, stress test, all coming up under B. Get out of the hospital, maybe you need a walker or a wheelchair, or maybe in the hospital, you've got a pacemaker or a brand new knee. Those would be examples of DME, durable medical equipment. If you've ever had a joint replacement, you know that PT stands for pain and torture. It's also called physical therapy. That's going to bill up under B, as will the ambulance that takes us to the emergency room and all of your outpatient services. So that's basically anything medical that didn't have you spending the night in the hospital. That could be a cataract, could be a colonoscopy. Lord knows these days they're doing full knee replacements on an outpatient basis. It's a mind blow. Would have kept our parents in the hospital for several nights. Now you check in at 6 in the morning, you're leaving at 4:30 in the afternoon with your brand new knee and your suitcase of meds. Don't forget those. And the last part of B would be clinical RX. And that's fancy speak for meds that are delivered in a medical facility, an outpatient center, or maybe a doctor's office, or maybe in the hospital. This clinical RX is the god-awful stuff: chemotherapy, kidney dialysis, radiation treatment, things that are really big ticket items. B typically has your back. This is not the same as the drugs that we would get through a Part D drug prescription program for high cholesterol from Walgreens or high blood pressure from Julasco. That's going to be the Part D drug program. But this here, this Part B thing, pretty amazing. Base premium, $170.10 a month. But wait a second. This has exposure as well, but this exposure is structured differently. A kind of has a pay as you go, do this, pay that, do this, pay that. Part B has an annual deductible. All of these services have an annual deductible. Once you've met the annual deductible, then there's cost sharing between you and Medicare. And that's what this looks like. The annual deductible, one time, you're going to pay the first $233. That could be your first doctor visit. It probably, I don't think you can find a blood panel that retails for under $233, but the first $233 is on you, after which Medicare is going to step in and start splitting bills with you 80-20. They pick up 80 cents on the dollar. They hold you responsible for 20 cents on the dollar. And this is pretty similar, should look familiar if you've ever looked at your insurance through your employer, right? There's a deductible and then there's cost sharing. The difference is on your employer plan, there's a firewall. There's a worst case scenario. It's called maximum out of pocket. That's the combination of your deductible and your coinsurance, and your employer plans are going to stop someplace. Could be $3,000, $4,000, $5,000. My wife and I are each on the Affordable Care Act. I have to laugh to say it. The Affordable Care Act. We each carry a $7,000 deductible. It's insane what's going on in the marketplace. The privilege for which we each pay $1,000 a month to carry a $7,000 deductible on each of you. This is infinitely better. But the issue here, good news, it's an unlimited benefit. If you need 5 knee replacements, they'll pay for 5 knee replacements. But understand, on each of the knee replacements, every 61 days, the 1556 is going to renew. And if you stay longer in skilled nursing, that's $194.50. I think we can almost laugh at a $233 deductible, but the one that should grab your attention, unlimited 20%. We all have friends and family that have been in the hospital for a relatively short period of time, and they've run up tens of thousands of dollars in bills. As a result, I would be very scared of 20% that has no stopping point, has no firewall. That's where we're going to look to pick up additional coverage. If you understood the cost of healthcare in the open market, you'd say, well, you know, there's some aces and spaces here, but man, for $170 a month, that's pretty amazing coverage. And it is. How do they do it for $170 a month? They don't. The government's dropping near $1,000 a month on each of us. They're asking you for the $170, but they're making up the difference with tax dollars. Remember that IRMA slide? The more you make, the more they take. They're looking to feed the beast. They need money to make this thing work because it's very expensive. Good news, unlimited benefit. Scary news, unlimited exposure. That's why in addition to original Medicare, most people are going to look to pick up more coverage to make it complete. And that coverage can take two different pathways. One pathway is called original Medicare. And that's where a tectonic shift occurs. You in your entire life have been educated by the insurance that you've had that's always told you you've got to stay in network. Whether you're with Humana or Blue Cross or Aetna or United Healthcare or any of them, you got to stay in network, because if you go out of network, you're going to get killed. What happens in the world of Medicare, there's still a network, but that network becomes any doctor, any hospital, anywhere in the United States, they take Medicare, you're in. It's amazing. We have the Blue Choice Preferred, which is a very small, narrow network. If you have Blue Cross Group, you have a bigger network. But if you went to Medicare, you'd blow that network away because it's so robust, whether you're in Key West or the Grand Tetons, as long as the doctor takes Medicare, you're in. Good, but not complete. So let's make it complete. Let's look to pick up additional coverage, secondary coverage brought to us by private insurance companies. These things are called Medicare Supplements. Why? Because they supplement original Medicare. Or if you prefer the term, we call them Medigap Plans because they fill in the gaps. We like to call exactly the same thing with these two different names just to confuse you, and that's what they're doing here. These are packages brought to us by private insurance companies that can pick up some or even all of what original Medicare doesn't cover. But they got to play by Medicare rules. And Medicare says, okay, boys, you want to sell these things? This is how you're going to do it. This is page 2 on your handouts. And this is where it usually starts to go a little sideways for most people. Okay, I was with you. I got the idea. A and B good, but A and B not complete. Okay, there's some weirdness there, but I think I got my mind wrapped around that A is different than B, facility services. Okay, but now what's going on here? Well, Medicare has base benefits. That right there is what we just talked about. These benefits, good but not complete. Then Medicare allows for 10 packages of benefits, 10 levels of coverage. We could call them good, better, best. We could call them silver, gold, or platinum. But in this instance, we're giving them letters. The letters designate the level of coverage. But Medicare says what that level of coverage represents. For example, if you looked at the N as in Nancy, as an example, Nancy is a package of benefits. Medicare says what Nancy covers, not the insurance companies. Wait. So you're telling me that N from United Healthcare is similar to N from Mutual of Omaha? No, sir, it's not similar. It's identical. Medicare says what N is. Yeah, but wait a second. I got United Healthcare. I know my doctor takes United Healthcare. Does my doctor even take Mutual of Omaha? No, sir. Does your doctor take Medicare? Tectonic shift. Medicare is now your network. Now you're looking for secondary coverage to make this complete. That secondary coverage is all playing by the rules that Medicare has put into place. Great for us as consumers. We have a level field of play, and currently now we've got 40 companies in Illinois that offer these products. New companies coming all the time. Just in the last 2 weeks, we added Aflac has joined the war with their duck. We've got the Chubb Group. If you know anything about financials, Chubb Group is a massively huge A+ rated company. They're jumping into this business because there's 10,000 baby boomers a day turning 65. This is big, big business. So 40 companies all offering N, and they're all utilizing the same network, and they're all doing the same thing. So what's the difference? The price. Capitalism works. Keep everyone on a level field of play, have complete transparency. Let's see what everybody's doing. And of the 40, who are the winners? Well, that's for us to determine. We can sit down and look at them together, please.
Okay, so when the doctor's insurance person wants their money,
Mhm.
who do they ask for it from? Medicare, i.e. the government, or B, Chubb?
Medicare is the primary payer. So the bill goes to Medicare. Medicare pays whatever Medicare pays. And then what's left over goes to, I'm sorry, you with Bankers Life, Forethought, Heartland, Philadelphia American, only after that. Medicare has first shot at it.
How does it get to the second party?
Seamlessly. Medicare sends it to your Medicare supplement company. It's almost
How do they know what
paperless.
that is?
You got a social security number?
Yeah,
Got a Medicare number?
no?
Yeah. Well, you will.
Okay, so when you sign up for Medicare, you declare at that point, I have a Medigap plan from Chubb.
Your timing is you got the right idea. You wouldn't want to declare for your supplement until you determined when you wanted to start your Medicare.
Right.
But yes, we can work together so that your last day at work is the 31st of October, and here comes Part B starting the 1st of November, as does the supplement, as does the drug program.
That's what I'm gonna say.
Don't want to do this, don't want to do this, right? Doing a double pay.
So basically, you're asking the doctor if they take Medicare.
Thank you,
You're not asking them if they take Chubb.
thank you.
Okay.
People get bollocked up
That's what I'm
on that
getting
all
down
the
here.
time.
It's like, okay,
Right,
all these guys are coming in. The doctor's gonna say, who the heck is Chubb?
Medicare is primary. Okay, so what you'll find is occasionally, the cute little girl that's sitting behind the desk, that's the doctor's niece. We don't mention that, but she's a sweetheart. And you say, she says, well, has your insurance changed? Yes, I've got Medicare. Okay, great. You have Medicare. She knows enough to be dangerous. Do you have a supplement? Well, yes, I do. Well, who's your supplement with? Mutual of Omaha. Oh, I don't know if we take Mutual of Omaha. No, sweetheart, do you take Medicare?
And that's what I'm getting at, how to answer that question.
Exactly. Now, that conversation will become much more germane when we start talking about Medicare Advantage programs. Then it is critical. Who is your insurance with? It's not with Medicare anymore. Now you've gone with a private insurance company. That's a big delineation, a big change in how you handle your coverage. Okay?
Okay,
So here are these packages of benefits, and there's 10 of them. We'll get into that in the 4th hour, but for brevity's sake, let's look at the big 3. Let's look at the 3 that have traditionally driven this supplemental market. There's 3 of them. And if you captured these F and G and N, I would say you'd get at least 90% of all supplements currently being sold would fall into one of those 3 categories.
I don't qualify for F, so.
Well, and that's true too. And
Throw it away.
the reason they stopped doing F is because F was the granddaddy of them all. F was the one that the agents loved to sell because F was the one that paid the highest commissions because F was the most expensive. Really, what does F do? Well, F, a package of benefits that would literally wipe out all of that exposure we saw. The hospital, skilled nursing, the hospice. It even paid the $233 annual Part B deductible. It paid that. Well, that looked really good if you were looking for simplistic, but I know how insurance companies work. The more you want them to do, they're happy to do it, but the more they do, the more they charge. And it didn't take long. Well, actually, it took quite a while. We've been ragging on F for years because F is overpriced for what it does. F, which wipes out everything 100%, is dwarfed in value by the G. The G is in golden. G that does everything F, wait. It does almost everything. There's one thing there. You're going to reach into your pocket and pay for something. Yeah, but F pays for it. What is it? It's the Part B deductible. So on your page right there, $233. Write down $233. That's your annual deductible. But homeowners, a deductible drives down premiums. Well, what's the value component? When you look at these, I got 40 companies with F and G, and in almost every instance, the G is at least $50 less per month than the F. Wait a second. So flip that. You're telling me I'm paying $50 more per month for the F, and what am I getting for my 50 times 12? That's $600 a year. I pay $600 more per year because I got the Cadillac, and what do I get for my $600? They pay the $233. All time stupid. F is for foolish. And the government finally came to that conclusion 2 years ago. And they said they're no longer marketing F to new enrollees. If you're turning 65 after January 1st of 2020, they're taking F out of your hands. It was never a good deal to begin with. The G was a superior value because accepting a deductible drives down premiums. Okay, I got it now. I dig a little deeper into my pocket and I save money every month. Can we go further? Well, yeah, we can. Let's look at N as in Nancy. Nancy says not only will you pay the $233, but then in addition to that, you also agree to doctor co-payments. Up to $20 to see a primary or a specialist, $50 if you go to the emergency room and they send you home. If they keep you overnight, the whole thing's covered. But this idea of additional cost sharing is going to drive your premiums down. And that's where you need to make a rational decision. This is a very emotional place to play. And the agents are tugging on your strings because we all get compensated by the insurance companies. If I can scare you into buying too much insurance, Mr. and Mrs. Client, you qualify for the F. You got to get the F. It's the best. No, it's not. It's tremendously overpriced. But because it's so much more expensive, it pays higher commissions. The G is a better value. N says pick up co-payments and drive your premiums down further. Ballpark. That G and the F couldn't be clearer. The G is a better value. But then compare the G to the N. N says you're picking up co-payments. That better drive my premiums down, and it does. If we were looking at a female turning 65, the difference between G and N, many companies put a ballpark number for education purposes. That N is going to be about $35 less per month. Yeah, that's nothing. It's $35. No, $35 a month is $420 a year. $420 a year. Year one, and we know this stuff is going to go up through the years. Yeah, but that's not fair. You're not comparing an apple to an apple. Here, I pay the deductible and I walk in everything else. Here, I got $20 doctor co-payments. I agree, but with $420 in savings, I know that you got to go to the doctor more than 21 times next year for N to have been a bad choice. That's not the nature of my industry. The nature of my industry is buy more, pay more. Can't be too sure. What if? They're going to put the fear of God into it and try to load you up. And most people, unfortunately, that I've run into in the world of Medicare, they're overinsured. They're spending more than they should be based upon a prudent analysis of what we actually need. Medicare's got rules on these supplements. The big rule, number one, is when you're first activating Part B, you got run of the house. They all got to take it. It's the law. No pre-existing conditions, no riders, no waivers, nothing. Once you choose a company and a product, they can never drop you. You're theirs and they're yours till the day you die or you find a better alternative. But most importantly, they can never single you out for a rate increase. You are in a risk pool and you share your claims with everyone that has the same policy in the same area as you do. So if you do Bankers Life with N, you go into a pool with everyone that's got Bankers Life N in the Chicagoland area. There's a certain risk assessment living in Chicago, but all those claims are shared among everyone that's got, we said, Bankers Life with N. You have a terrible year, first diagnosis, dread disease, fall off a roof, stroke out, car wreck. They can't come to you and say, man, you are expensive. We're going to raise your rates. No, they can only raise rates for everyone that's got Bankers Life N in the Chicagoland area. There's safety in numbers. That's why typically on this field of play, if we're looking at these products, we're going to be looking at large companies. We want ones that have stood the test of time. We mentioned a couple that have just jumped into the market. I'll be very interested to see how they do. And I may even write their business in 2 to 3 years once they prove to me that they're in it for the long haul and they're not getting in and then getting burned. Because we've seen a couple of big players jump into the market. The idea is that you share claims. So you had better get a healthy group of people pretty quick to avoid massive claim loss. There's a big life insurance company not 5 years ago jumped into the market, a name we've all heard before. They paid broker bonuses. That drives me crazy because now they're trying to get the brokers to place this stuff, but they couldn't get to critical mass. First year, they took claims, they went up 15%. Next year, they went up 15%. Year 3, they dropped out of the market. That's what can happen on these newer players. What we'll do here is we'll typically be looking at the big 4, the ones that have stood the test of time, been around for at least 25 years, have at least an A+ rating. I can always show you a lower price. If you're interested in N, we can go online and I can show you that Northwest Arkansas Life has a really good price. But they're a B- rated company. They've been in the market for less than 15 minutes. Are they going to stand the test of time? I don't want to hitch your wagon or my reputation to a B- company and expect them to be there in years paying claims.
So can you be with Arkansas for 2 years and then switch to another in N or not?
Maybe, asterisk, because what happens is you've got your 1 year window, 1 year on these Medicare supplements. We call it your golden ticket. 6 months before you activate B, 6 months after you activate B, go anywhere you want to go. They got to take you. It's the law.
Okay.
But eventually that 6 months wears away. And then what happens? Then you can change these every month of the year, But now they can ask medical questions. Now they can underwrite. Now they can say, thank you very much, but did you say hip replacement? No, 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 we don't want to pay for that. AFib? No, 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 we don't want to pay for that. Cancer treatments? No, thanks. And that underwriting on this field of play in Illinois, 39 out of 40 companies currently doing business. If you want to move, they'll gladly take your application, but they're going to underwrite and they're going to check on your health status. And they reserve the right to say thank you, but no thank you. However, in Illinois, we have a blessing. And that's not a term you hear very frequently living in Illinois, but we have a Medicare supplement in Illinois, a company that does not ask medical questions. That's a godsend for me as an agent, because the guy that's 85 and has emphysema, and he took F initially because the agent convinced him it was the best possible coverage. And maybe back in the day it was cool, but it ain't $165 a month anymore. Now at 85, it's like $340 on him and $320 on her, and it's dragging them under. And we get a chance to work with those kind of people and say, okay, I know you got the emphysema, but let's do a needs analysis. How often do you really go to the doctor? You went to the doctor 7 times last year? Well, F is overkill. G might even be too much. You might be a good candidate for the N. And we have the ability to move them because we had a company that doesn't ask medical questions. Most of them do. Common mistake here. A little knowledge is a dangerous thing. Every year I get to change the drug program from October 15th to December 7th. It's open enrollment. I get to change my supplement then too, right? No. You went with Northwest Arkansas Life because they had a great rate, but they insured 18 people in the state. One guy has a lung transplant. Everybody's rates go through the roof. We want huge risk pools. We want a lot of people in those pools, which goes back to what we talked about with the F. Just to finish whipping up on F, because I love it. What's going to happen to the risk pool of people who have F? Where'd all the 65-year-olds go? They can't get it anymore. The young, healthy people that were in there helping defray costs for the older and sicker, the F is getting smaller and older and sicker and smaller, and those rates are going through the roof. If you can get out now, you should get out now. And even if you've got medical issues, we still have the ability to make that move, okay? Medicare supplements are great. We love them because they give us a chance to customize your program. What's your level of coverage? What do you need? Sometimes mom is all over the G. Dad likes the idea of the N. We'd like to keep you at the same company because different companies will offer household discounts that can make this stuff much more affordable. We understand a prudent choice of what you need right now. Questions on supplements? Anybody online there? Megan, please.
So how do you know what you need? You're not going, so you're 65 and it's time to pick a service. How do you know what you need? So how do you assess that?
Talk to me. No, I can't say that. But what you would want is you go to the racetrack and you bet on the horse. And I'm not calling you a horse, but you go to the racetrack, you bet on the track record of the horse, right? So what's your medical record? What's going on in your life? If we've got a dread disease that recently was overcome, or skeletons in the closet, or if you lost 2 or 3 of your brothers and sisters to some god-awful hereditary disease, I'm not wishing that on anybody, but based upon your experience, I would tell you there's no better sleeping pill than the G. No better sleeping pill. Once you've paid $233, you're done.
So you would do like a medical history or a family history to see what my needs would be.
It would be prudent to look at that. It would be important to look at that. Do you run triathlons or are you in a wheelchair? Somewhere in between there, we're going to find a rationality. What we need to understand is even in the most dread of circumstance, you probably aren't going to the doctor all that much. Yeah, you're going for chemotherapy, but that's a tech. That's not a doctor. You may be going for physical therapy, but that's a physical therapist. It's not an MD. They don't have a diploma, or they do, but they're not medical doctors. The doctors that you see usually are going to say, "Ooh, I don't like the way this looks. I want an MRI, a CAT scan, an X-ray, and I want you to see the cardiologist." Well, on that end, the cardio is going to run you up to $20. The other stuff is all covered. So no one situation is ever the same. But understand what's going on here. No deductible has got to be more expensive than the one that's got the deductible. The one that's got the deductible has got to be more expensive than the one that's got the co-payments. And the one that's got the co-payments would be more expensive. You've got an option here, what they call high deductible supplement, a high deductible supplement that says you'd be willing to experience a firewall of $2,490 and understand how they misname high deductible G. G comes in two flavors. Standard G, pay your $233 and walk. High deductible G says you'd pay the 20% or possibly the hospitalization or maybe the skilled nursing, but you'd pay all that if it ever got to $2,490. After that, everything's covered. Well, what do you think happens to that premium? That comes way, way down because you've accepted more responsibility. Might not be your cup of tea, but I've got people who love it. They're in pretty good shape. They're financially astute, in my estimation. They've got a chunk of dough in the bank. I know that if something goes wrong with me or my wife, the first $7,000, that's out of my pocket. I got to get to $7,001 before my company shows up and pays a penny. A $2,490 compilation of everything that I've spent towards it, $233 deductible goes towards the $2,490. Your 20% goes towards the $2,490. That is a firewall that for many baby boomers, if you got your own insurance, you're like me, you've been going to bed for the last 8-9 years with a $6,000 or $7,000 deductible. $2,490 looks very appealing to me, but not for everybody. The beauty of this, totally customizable. What do we need it to be? What do we want it to be? What's prudent for your finances? What's prudent for your history as far as medical, okay? A and B good, but not complete. We just looked at Medicare supplements to make it complete. We'd still want to have a drug program. If you don't take a drug program when it's first offered, you're foolish because they've come down in price so rapidly over the last 5 years. It's hard to believe. 5 years ago, we didn't have a drug program under $20 a month. Now this year, going into 2023, we have at least 2 that we know of that'll be less than $9 a month. It's amazing. Amazing. Capitalism works when you keep it on the rails. The drug programs this year, we got 23 companies and they're all mailing you stuff, but 23 companies. The least expensive drug program this year is $690. The most expensive drug program this year is $145 a month. As you might imagine, this guy's in pretty good shape. This guy's a wreck, but he'd pay a higher premium to get lower co-payments for a broader selection of drugs. That's how it works. 23 companies, but they all got to play by Medicare rules. Medicare runs this show. They allow private insurance companies to solicit your business, but they force all of them to show us their cards every year during this annual election period. We're kind of sitting on pins and needles right now because we'll get to see all of the drug programs on October 1st. They got to show us their cards. Then we get to sit there and say, well, who's got the best Eliquis? And who's got the best Trulicity? And who's got the best Ozempic? And we'll find out who the players are and who we want to be involved with. But these 23 drug programs that you currently are looking at are all going to be showing us their cards. And from October 15th to December 7th, my hope is that there will be more than 23 drug programs. I want more competition. I want more capitalism. I've seen it work. Medicare says you don't have to take a drug program. And I could understand when the drug programs first came out in 2006, nobody knew what they were buying. The insurance companies were terrified. A drug program? What's our exposure? And most of those drug programs in the early years were at least 40, 50, 60 bucks. Well, capitalism through the years now, they've got a grip on what their exposure is. They know how to manage the exposure. The $6.90 program ain't great for brand name drugs, but it's good for generics. They've kind of firewalled off their exposure. But this late enrollment penalty, people initially passed on the drug program because it's 40 bucks a month and I don't take anything. And anything I ever take is going to be generic. I'm not going to worry about it. It's going to be fine. But inevitably, 5 or 6 or more years down the road, the doctor comes to you and says, here, you need to start taking this miracle drug. Let's call it Eliquis. It's a blood thinner. It's a miracle. You don't have to take Eliquis. You can take warfarin, where you're clipping yourself every day and getting bloody from checking your viscosity of your blood. No, Eliquis takes all that away. It's a miracle. But Eliquis is about a $560 retail drug. And we run into it all the time. The guy that passed on the drug program because he was never going to take anything but a generic anyhow. And if it was a brand name, he's going to go to GoodRx and he's going to find it for, geez, it's $560. So then they come to the realization that, yeah, they probably do need a drug program and we can sign them up during this annual election period. But the issue there is the government has not forgotten about you. That late enrollment penalty has just been waiting for you, ticking away. every month, negligible. This year it's like 35 cents a month. That's nothing. Yeah, 35 cents a month is about $5 every year. And you waited 5 years to go get your drug program. Well, that's $25. Okay, I'll pay the penalty one time and then I'm done, right? No, the late enrollment penalty sticks with you every month through the rest of your life. So it's very important to make sure that we pick up a drug program, especially now. I understand, sir, that you're not taking any medications, but for less than $10, you're going to avoid the penalty. And more importantly, if something comes down the road, we see it all the time. People get caught March, April. Here comes the doctor. You need an expensive drug. And all of a sudden they're limping to get to January 1st, where we can put them into a new drug program for the next year. Please.
Can you choose a different drug program?
Every single year from October 15th to December 7th.
Do you get penalized?
Excuse
Do
me?
you get penalized going from one to
Not if you had continuous coverage. The only way that you'd get penalized is if you rolled off your group insurance and said, pish tosh, I'm not going to get a drug program. Then the penalty starts. Then the lockout starts. You can't even get back into a drug program until the annual election period. And then, oh, by the way, here's the penalty that you pay every month for the rest of your life. The key here is continuous coverage, both with Medicare Part B and the drug programs. So if you're over 65 and you change jobs, please hang on to the proof of your prior coverage, because when you show up at the Social Security Department at 72 and you say, hey, I want to sign up for Medicare now, they're going to say, great, show us your prior coverage. And you're going to say, here's my prior coverage. No, wait a second. You've only been in there for 2 years and you're 72. What about the other 5 years? Oh, I had coverage. They're not going to take your word for it. They're going to want proof. And we've seen people get bollocksed up who continue to work past 65. They need to be able to present proof to the government to avoid penalties in the Part D and to be able to sign up for the Part B without penalty or delay. It's that creditable coverage that's critical, okay? All of the drug programs are going to have different formularies. What does that mean? They're going to have different menus. They're going to cover different drugs. The $6.90 program, I assure you, does not cover the same drugs as the $145. Why would you pay $145 if they're the same thing? But 23 companies all beating each other over the head, all trying to determine what do they want to cover. Medicare publishes their master formulary, everything you can offer. And then the companies have to say, well, do we want to go after generics or brands, or do we want to go after a mixture, or do we want to just partner with Walgreens, or do we want to do mail order? But all of them will grade their formularies on a 5-star base, 5 tiers of drugs. Your employer plan typically is a 3-tier program. They've got generics, they've got brands, and they've got specialty. Here we've got 5 tiers to drive more competition. Tier 1 are the cheapest of the cheap, generics, metformin, lisinopril, atorvastatin. Tier 2, these are newer generics. Crestor recently went generic. Now it's called rosuvastatin calcium. It's a little bit more expensive because it's a newer generic. Tier 3, these are drugs that are advertised on TV. Tier 4, these are drugs that are advertised on TV by famous people. Okay, so Phil Mickelson is getting his chunk of dough. And Tier 5, these are specialty drugs. These are terrifying. These are AIDS medications or anti-rejection drugs for transplants, or maybe chemotherapy that you might be able to take in the privacy of your own home. This is where we have to be very careful to ask the doctor, I can take it in the privacy of my own home, or is it possible that I could have it infused in a clinical setting? Why? Because if it's clinical setting, it bills up under Medicare Part B. It could save you a small fortune. But understand, when you're paying these co-payments, the government's not tracking what you're paying. They're tracking the retail value of the drug. Why is that important? Because all drug programs have 3 stages of coverage, all of them, whether we go Advantage or whether we go standalone. And these stages of coverage are driven by what you're taking. That's why your drug program could be totally different than your husband's drug program, because you're taking different stuff. But these stages of coverage, I welcome you to the world of a drug program designed by Congress, okay? Convoluted, I will agree with you, but understand what they're getting at here. They're trying to determine your behavior. They're trying to affect your behavior. All of the drug programs are going to have these stages. Most drug programs have an annual deductible. I assure you the $6.90 program has a $480 deductible this year. The $145 program doesn't. Well, of course it doesn't, because it's charging you an arm and a leg for the drug program. But for example, the gentleman who now found out he needs to start taking Eliquis. The doctor says Eliquis, he says, okay, finds out he can't do anything. Are you guys hip to GoodRx? You know what GoodRx is? It's a website that shows us locally, all the local pharmacies and what they would charge if all you had was a GoodRx card. You're not even going to run it through your drug program. But he's going to find in very short order, these tier 3 drugs, there ain't no running for shelter. These are very expensive medications, and that's why he wants a drug program. But he's going to have an annual deductible, and at first Eliquis, it's a $500 drug. He's going to knock out the deductible of $480. Then he moves into the initial stage of coverage. And this is really a good feeling, because in the initial stage of coverage, depending on the drug program, but he's probably going to pay somewhere around $40 a month for that Eliquis. That's a sweet deal. That's a $500 drug, and he's paying $40 a month for the drug. That's pretty cool. That's why you got a drug program. But every time he says 40, they say 500. He says 40, they say 500. Eventually, the dreamland comes to an end if the retail value of his drugs were to exceed this year $4,430 worth of drugs, not what he's paid, the retail value of his meds. If he crosses that threshold, he moves from the initial stage of coverage into the donut hole or the coverage gap. All drug programs have this. The coverage gap, you're still protected. Don't completely wig out on me, but now you have a higher level of responsibility. Now you're paying 25% of the retail value of the drug. So his Eliquis just went from $40 co-payments, $500 times 8 would be 4 times 9 months. 9 months of Eliquis would be, just that one med alone would be enough to get him through that stage and into the coverage gap. And now he's not paying $40 anymore. Now he's paying 25% of $500. That's $125. That'll grab your attention. We seem to get a lot of calls this time of year, October, November. My friend said we should call. Something's gone wrong with my drug program. Well, okay, tell me what's going on. Well, I've been going to Walgreens every month and I've been paying $80. And now I went in to pick up my meds and they want $397. So, well, I'm not sure, but it sounds to me this time of year, you've probably fallen into the coverage gap. And they will say, I can't have fallen into the coverage gap. I've only spent like $800. No, sir. It's not what you've spent. It's the retail value of what you've acquired that's driving you towards this coverage gap, towards this donut hole. You can get out of the donut hole, but it's spendy. You can get into this catastrophic coverage where you pay 5% of the retail value of your drugs, but it's a hard slog to get out of it into catastrophic. And then everything resets January 1. Everything is on a calendar basis. You come join a drug program with us in November and December, it's going to reset again January 1. So this time of year, what we do is, it's not unusual. We'll do a 2-step. There's a program that's the best one for you for October, November, December, and then lo and behold, there's a better one for next year. We'll write 2 policies at the same time to make sure that we got you in the best place for next year as well. All of the drug programs are going to have different formularies. One company may treat your med as a tier 3. Another may treat it as a tier 4. Another may not cover it at all. So what we need to understand is that every year during this annual election period, it's critically important to figure out what's the best program for you for the next year. And this is a relatively simple process. Call 23 companies, spend an hour on the phone with each of them, find out which one you know, and that's not what we're going to do. We're going to go to Medicare.gov. We're going to go to Find Health and Drug Plans. We're able to plug your meds in, and we can show you every one of those 23 drug programs. We don't, the government does. You can do this on your own, or there's SHIP counselors, volunteers that will help you with this. You don't want to go through us, that's great. Go through 1-800-Medicare. They'll do this for you at 2 in the morning. And they'll help you decipher what's the best pathway for you, what's the best drug program for the next year. Plug in this guy's meds. Here's one we ran at the beginning of this year. The drug program is $25 a month. That's almost irrelevant. The premium that you pay is the premium that you pay for the drug program. How does the drug program treat your drugs? For this guy, this came out number 1. It has the annual deductible. And what's he taking? Oh, dear Lord, there's the Eliquis. Retail is $496. $496. He'll meet his deductible in January. You bet he will, because he's gonna pay the $496 before he knocks out the $480. But then, whoo, we go into the initial stage of coverage, which is the cost after deductible. Look at that, he's paying $30 for the Eliquis. That's a sweet deal. $30, but they're saying 500. He's paying $30, they're saying 500. And what does that mean? You'll enter the coverage gap in August. And what does that mean? He's not taking enough expensive drugs. He does not get out of the coverage gap before everything resets. You want to see that coverage gap coming 8 lanes wide. You do not want to be surprised by it, and people are every year. Taken by surprise. Oh, I had no idea this was going on. Well, then you didn't make a fully informed decision, and nobody really explained this to you. The guy who calls, because now he's getting clipped at Walgreens, didn't the agent that you worked with explain to you the coverage gap in the donut hole? Oh, no, dude, I did it myself. There's a problem. People get very confused here by the world of Medicare, and they say, my goodness, how could anybody do this on their own? I know. They do it wrong. And they don't find out until the evidence of their mistake is presented to them. Hopefully on the drug program, we can change that next year. But the 85-year-old who took the F supplement and didn't realize, oh, they're all the same. How can they all be the same? They all go up every year. Not all of them. Well, I couldn't qualify anyhow. Maybe you could. It's worth looking at. And these drug programs, be critically aware. Preferred pharmacies is where you want to stay. You can go to any pharmacy and they'll take your money with a smile, but you want a preferred pharmacy. Used to be mail order was always your best option, not so much anymore. Mail order has been shown the door. The retailers have figured out this is a hell of a way to get people into the store. It's interesting when you look at the field of play, I'm always impressed. Mariano's, of all people, Mariano's is a preferred pharmacy with almost every drug program. I wonder why that is, because they know if they can get you in the door,
Yeah.
and they tell you it's going to be about 10, 15 minutes, you don't just stand there tapping your foot, you go wander. And if you wander in Mariano's, you'll get into trouble. I know. You'll buy more stuff, and that's what they're banking on. But you got to be sure you're using the preferred pharmacy. In this instance, CVS was this guy's preferred pharmacy. In another instance, it could be another retailer. We'll work with people and they'll say, I only want to go to Walgreens. Okay, well then we're not going to look at 23 drug programs. We're only going to look at the 8 that feature Walgreens. But could you walk across the street to Osco to save $400 a year? Tell me about that again. You've got to be looking at all of your options here, okay? Questions on drug programs?
But if you travel, wouldn't you want something like Walgreens over Mariano's?
Correct. Would you want to make sure that there was a Walgreens or a CVS or a Walmart or a Costco or one of those? Yeah, you would. Most of the drug programs have multiple options of where you can go.
Okay.
Usually there's no less than 3 preferred pharmacies. But again, that goes back to what's the right one? Well, if you're spending half the year in Florida, I want to look at the Florida preferred pharmacies too, because there's no Mariano's in Florida, but there's a Kroger. Right? There's no Publix here, but there is in Florida. There's no Winn-Dixie here, but there is down there. The drug programs are regional. They're basically done on a state-by-state basis. Why? To foster the retail competition that's out there to get you the best possible value. I've seen people take the best drug program and go to the wrong retailer. Completely missed. You got to hook it up. You want to make sure you got the right supplement and the right drug program. And frequently, that's not going to be from the same company. A dead giveaway when I work with folks and I see that they've got the supplement and the drug program with the same company, not to say it couldn't happen, but that's usually a giveaway that they work with what's called a captive agent, somebody that only represents one company. I'm only going to show you the 2 drug programs I represent because I'm a captive agent and they're giving me leads, and that's how I got to your kitchen table. But you don't want to look at just 2, you want to look at 23. You don't want to just look at one company's offering. You want to look at the best supplement for you and the best drug program for you. And then maybe it's a totally different drug program for your husband. You probably want to keep the supplement with the same company to enjoy a household discount. But anybody who's done everything with the same company, usually that's a giveaway that they didn't shop enough. And in Illinois, you've got one of the big players that people believe that the sun and the moon and the stars rise and set with that insurance company. And I've worked with people where, okay, let's go through this again. Company number one is $147 a month. Company number two is $167 a month. But the company that you're insisting on buying is $217 a month. They're doing the same thing. Do you really want to do that? But you've got to be able to look at the field of play and understand that capitalism here is our friend. A and B good. A and B don't cover everything. We pick up a supplement, many of those to choose from. We grab a drug program. And that's where most people are going to start. It's what your parents did. It's what your friends do. And it's pretty simple to understand. You know, we can shop the drug program. We could look at the Medicare supplement. But so many people come to this field of play, and the critical mistake, they make one decision, they throw it in the kitchen drawer, and they never look at it again. And that's infuriating to me because I understand the dynamics of what's going on here. But I'm not going to lose sleep over it because I know eventually you're going to be driven to figure out what's going on. Because mom and dad signed up here and now they're 73 and dad's looking at the bills and he's looking at the bills and he's saying, honey, you know, when we started this thing, this was pretty reasonable, but now between your supplement and your drug program, we're dropping $250 a month. And between my supplement and my drug program, we're dropping another $250 a month. That's $500 a month. That's $6,000 a year. And as far as I can tell, we went to the doctor a total between the two of us 7 times last year. Is that real value? $6,000 for 7 doctor visits? And that might have them doing a reality check. And we love that. We catch people every year. They've been referred to us by friends or family. And you find out, Mr. and Mrs. Client, here you are at 73, and you threw it in the drawer and you never looked at it again. Let's talk about what's been going on. How often you've been going to the doctor? What's going on in your life? Really, seriously, between the two of you, you went to the doctor 7 times last year. I'm not going to rain on anybody's parade, but inside I'm going to say, gosh darn it, you didn't need the F. You really didn't need the F. You've got a Cadillac when a Volkswagen would do the job. So maybe we move you from the F to the G, but you don't go to the doctor that much. Maybe we even move you to the N, and we can do that. We got a company that doesn't even ask medical questions. So we could downshift on the supplement to something more appropriate. And then I'm sorry, but you haven't looked at the drug program for 8 years. You're killing me here. Because when you took the drug program, you took a smart drug program because you were taking 2 tier 3 meds, 2 expensive meds. That's why you took the $40 drug program. But here we are 8 years later. Both of those medications have gone generic. And your $40 drug program is now $70 a month. You don't need a $70 drug program. You need like the $10 program. You can save them money on the drug program. You can rearrange their Medicare supplement. You can put together a much sharper package of benefits and save them money. Or they might be looking at one of these things called an Advantage program, a different idea, right? Here, we're paying a premium for the supplement, paying a premium for the drug program. We got to have A and B to do anything else. Remember, that's a sunk cost. We got to have that. But they've seen these commercials on TV where Joe Namath is promising them the sun and the moon and the stars, and it's all free. It's not free. Those are advertisements. Those are very disingenuous. But what they are is an alternative to your coverage that could potentially make sense. We said the government ain't running Medicare for the $170 a month you're sending, and they're dropping darn near $1,000 a month on each of us. They'll take most of that money and send it to a private insurance company, and the private insurance company now will step in and run the show. First reality check. We're not dealing now with any doctor, any hospital that takes Medicare. Now we're dealing with network restrictions. Network restrictions can lower your premiums because you're agreeing to go where they'll let you go. You could go full on and do an HMO. If you're familiar with an HMO, that's where you keep everything with a single medical group. And maybe it's Advocate or it's Northwestern or it's Dooley. And the DuPage Medical Group primary is only going to refer you to the DuPage Derm, the DuPage Endo, the DuPage Gastro. That's what an HMO is, very restrictive. And that's where they were. When we started here 15 years ago, there were 6 HMOs. That was the end of the story. But this has become such big business that now they realize people don't necessarily like to be shoehorned into one. They like to cross-pollinate. And they can do a PPO. They can do a PPO on this Advantage chassis. Now, the HMOs could be a 0 premium HMO, 0 premium. You're not going to pay for the drug program. You're not going to pay for the supplement. And for that couple, that knows that they're going to spend $6,000 next year, whether they do something or they don't do something, we can drive that down. But if they took that $6,000 and put it in the kitty and went with an HMO, a restrictive advantage program, where all of your co-payments will have a firewall. Well, the more they can control you, the lower the firewall. On an HMO, you could see an out-of-pocket maximum, perhaps of as little as $2,500 to $3,000. That's your worst case scenario if it all goes wrong. That's not a deductible. That's a compilation of everything that you spend. People want more selection. We actually have zero premium PPOs. Wait a second. You said anytime the insurance company does more, they charge you more. How can it still be zero? Because the out-of-pocket goes up. Now we're talking $4,000 or $5,000. We're talking more to see a primary, more to see a specialist, that type of thing. But remember when we looked at supplements and we said the one with no deductible was more expensive than the one with the deductible, more expensive than the one with copays, more expensive with the one with the higher out-of-pocket? That's one way to drive down your premiums. The other way to drive down your premiums is perhaps to agree to network restrictions. Maybe you don't need any doc. Maybe you do. Maybe you still have the place in Florida. You got the ranch in Montana. You're still doing that surfing contest every year in California. Well, then you're probably better over here, because whether you're in Key West or the Grand Tetons, your only question, do you take Medicare? That's it. But over here now, you got to be really careful, because it's not do they take Medicare. It's do they take Advantage? What kind of Advantage? Well, could be AARP, Blue Cross Blue Shield, could be Humana, could be Aetna, could be Cigna, could be Devoted, any number of companies. We literally have 52 of these that want your business, and they're all sending you mail. The compilation, the combination of network restrictions and co-payments for everything is how this Advantage program works. It's not a bad thing, but not enough people understand what they've done. They've watched an 800 number and they pick up the phone. All of these Advantage programs understand there's rules of engagement. You've got to have A and B. You're not getting away from that. You've got to pay the Part B. And if you've got an IRMA bump, you're paying more because of income, you'll pay it here too, because you're paying the bump on the B, and you'll also pay the bump because this has a drug program built right into the chassis. It's a private insurance company that replaces original Medicare. You're literally going to put that card away, and you're not going to use these 3 cards. Now you're just going to use one card, and they run the whole show. It's available on a county by county basis. So what your brother has in Missouri is not going to be the same program as what we have here in DuPage County. They include additional benefits. And this is where those advertisements to me get very disingenuous. I get very angry. Get all the benefits you're entitled to: dental, vision, hearing, and more. Call 1-800. You're talking to a salesperson. They're going to spin you up and they're going to explain to you all these different benefits. But a dental benefit is different than dental insurance. Okay? Toothpaste is a dental benefit. Dental floss is a dental benefit. True dental insurance that gets your teeth fixed, you've got to look at the details on these programs, because they play fast and loose on the TV ads. Vision, hearing, fitness, these are additional benefits. Why? Because these companies are getting paid a fortune by the federal government to run your health insurance. And I just imagine them lighting up like a Christmas tree, because wait a second, you're going to give us almost $1,000 a month to take care of Ralph, and Ralph's going to stay in our network, and Ralph's going to agree to co-payments for everything? Yeah. Anything that you see advertised incessantly on TV has to bring up a bit of a question. You don't get something for nothing. These Advantage programs have a place in the market, but the key is to understand what's on page 5 and page 6, not to listen to the advertisements that you're seeing on TV. All of them are going to be run by your new best friend in the world. Medicare keeps all of these companies on a very short leash. We call them Medicare Part C for complete. We also know them as Medicare Advantage programs. We'll also call them Medicare replacement programs, because that's how they work. They'll all have more restrictive networks. That's not a bad thing. If your health is reasonably good and your doctors are in network, let's continue to investigate. All of them will have co-payments for services, but those co-payments will vary by company. One has a $5 primary, one has a $0 primary. One has a $35 specialist, the other has a $20 specialist. We got to look at the co-payments. Why? Because they're all going to be captured. They're all going to stop at a certain point. That's what we call capped exposure. That's your maximum out of pocket, your worst case scenario, depending on the program, depending on the co-payments, depending on how broad you want that network of doctors and hospitals to be, those co-payments will be different. The majority of them include a Part D drug program built right into the chassis. And this is interesting because they want your business. They've built the hotel. They want to fill it up with people. Yes, dental, vision, and hearing, but sometimes you'll find drug benefits that are better than what you see in the standalone market. You can find several years ago, one of the major Advantage programs started a revolutionary program where insulins were a zero copay. Boy, they did a lot of business on that. That was a great benefit. We moved quite a few people who were taking insulin onto that Advantage program because they were saving a fortune in medications. But you got to look at all of them to determine, is that a break point? Is that something that makes a big difference? If you're saving a fortune on a medication on this chassis, that could be a reason to go this route as opposed to original Medicare. And they're all available to us during the annual election period. That's where we are right now, from October 15th to December 7th. If you decided you wanted to try a Medicare Advantage program, that couple can leave here, save. You're not saving, you're putting it in the cookie jar, the philosophy of the cookie jar. They're putting $6,000 into the cookie jar. Now they're coming over here and they had another average year. What happened last year? They went to the doctor 7 times. This year they went to the primary twice. They went to the specialist 3 times. She fell. They weren't sure. They went to the emergency room. She got an MRI. But all of those co-payments, all loaded up together, they didn't drop more than $600 on this chassis. You got to look at the co-payments and understand that if they've put away $6,000, this could be a really neat place to be. And Medicare likes these programs. Medicare says if you decided to try an Advantage program, you get a 1-year trial run. Anytime in the first year they decide, you know what, this isn't what we signed up for, I didn't realize, whatever it was, they didn't realize. Anytime in the first year, we can bring them right back and they're guaranteed to be able to get their supplement, their drug program back. That's Medicare law. You get a 1-year trial right if you try an Advantage program. Anytime in that first year, you left your supplement and your drug program behind and you came over here and Medicare says, we know it could be kind of scary. So they give you a test drive. They give you a trial right. They give you 1 full year to try this thing on first. I didn't realize there were co-payments for physical therapy. Well, then you didn't work with a very good agent because we want to look on page 8 and see that. Oh, I didn't realize that my doctor wasn't in network. We hear that all the time. Really? Who signed you up for an Advantage program without investigating your doctors, your drugs, and what you need to have covered? But that's the people that are calling the 800 number. They're just being turned over. I read a story about one guy on these teleservice lines. He averages like 18 Advantage programs a day. That is impossible. If you're doing a good job, you're spending at least an hour going over this. And I know he's not working 18 hours a day. They play fast and loose. It's a 0 premium with additional benefits. Sign up right here. But Medicare knows that that could go sideways. So Medicare gives you a 1-year trial right. If anytime in that first year you didn't like it, we can move you back over here. The sales pitch is Mr. and Mrs. Klein. You try an Advantage program, you don't like it anytime the first year, you can move right back. It's easy peasy, it's a trial rate. And then every year, if you don't like it, we can move you right back to original Medicare. And that's a classic example of a partial sentence and a half truth. True, you can move back to original Medicare. You'd have to wait for that annual election period, but let's say they're over here for 2-3 years. And then they decide, you know what, we want to come back to original Medicare. Well, from October 15th to December 7th, no problem. Get that Medicare card out, dust it off, because now you've gone back to original Medicare. And go ahead and pick a drug program because all the drug programs are available to you. It's the annual election period. Pick any one of the 23, or hopefully by then it's 35 drug programs. And you can go ahead and apply for a supplement. I'm sorry, what was that again? Well, you can apply for a supplement. Yeah, but wait a second. Applying for a supplement is not the same thing as getting a supplement. And in Illinois, we'd have 39 out of 40 companies that would say, wait a second, you're coming off Advantage and you want to come back to original Medicare. Why? Well, there's a doctor that I want to see that's not in my network. Okay, what are you seeing a doctor for? I mean, you're starting to describe a pre-existing condition. The thing that gives us the faith and the ability to look at Advantage and to market Advantage is I know I got a bailout. I know I got a company that's going to take us without any medical underwriting if necessary. And that's a blessing that gives us the flexibility to look at Advantage and understand that there can be benefits there.
All right, can we wrap this up within a few minutes here.
Sure.
We're running over our
You
time.
got any questions?
Not online, no.
Okay, very good. So here we go with original Medicare or the idea of a Medicare Advantage program. Got to have A and B, got to have A and B to do anything else. That's where we start. A and B good, but not complete. One pathway has us adding a supplement and adding a drug program. That's called original Medicare. And it's got a lot going for it. What you'd find there is maximum selection, minimum out of pocket, but yes, you're paying a premium. Or there's this other idea called Medicare Advantage. Different idea. Network restrictions and co-payments for services that get us lower premiums. Neither pathway is perfect. Neither pathway is the end all. People want to know, what should I do? I don't know. Got to know more about your situation before we make these decisions. I work with a lot of people on group insurance. They're already in an HMO. They know the rules of engagement. They're not scared by an HMO at all. In fact, they like it a lot. It's worked really well for them. Well, that might indicate that an Advantage program could be a good place for them to be. Other people, depending on what your druthers are, I've seen it in years gone by, typically, not to be anything other than factual, women seem to like original Medicare because they want to have their doctors and see their doctors when they want to see their doctors, and they've assembled a team and it's very important to them. Men seem to operate under the Jiffy Lube philosophy of healthcare. They don't really care where they go as long as they're in and out in 20 minutes and they got a coupon. But either one of these pathways can make sense. And either one of these pathways represents challenges to you that you don't have to do alone. What we do is we're brokers. We represent the companies in the marketplace. There's no charge to you to meet with us. All we do is help you navigate this world. The prices are the same, whether you go through us or you go through an 800 number or pick up a website. The difference there is we can make that learning curve much shorter and help you by being your wingman through the process. That's the key, to make fully informed decisions and understand that we can change them through the aging process. Done. So, questions? Anybody got questions, please?
How long have you been doing this?
15 years. First time I've ever made a presentation. Did it make sense?
I did have someone online ask if you would be willing, these people in the room got handouts, if we would be able to send the handouts to the people who are online.
$20. No, that's fine. Sure, we can send it to them in email form. That's great. Or they can get it. They can get it on our website. Just go to our website, MedicareSolutionsNetwork.com. Booyah, that's a plug. Please.
The original Medicare, is there any options where you have a max out of pocket? That's only with the Advantage.
Well, with the supplement, you can have, if you qualify for the F, no maximum out of pocket. Everything's covered. High deductible G, your maximum out of pocket would be $24.90, right? Because it's a compilation of everything you've spent. But I think you're asking, is there a benefit limit? No. We've seen bills hundreds of thousands of dollars. Once on the G, once they've paid their $233, thanks very much, I'm done. It's crazy good. It really is. Question.
You mentioned earlier about the large companies, large or big companies.
Mhm.
Were you referring to the Medicare section or separate private companies?
I was referring to the supplements that want your business. There's currently 40 of those in the market. And I would
40 in the
challenge you,
market.
32 of them you ain't never heard of before. That's not a good indicator. When somebody's sitting at your table, jumping up and down on how great a company is, I want to see their financial rating. I'm only going to deal with companies that are A+. I want to see their track record, how long they've been in the market. You see some of these companies with really good rates have been in the market a year or two. They have yet to really prove themselves. The companies, the big four that we like, have all been in the market over 40 years. They all have A+ ratings. They all have a really good track record of minimal rate increases over the course of the years. Why? Because they insure a boatload of people and they're sharing claims among everybody, right? They can't single one person out. They can only share those claims over the group. That's what keeps rates low.
Insurance, the big four insurance.
Big four insurance companies and the world of Medicare supplements.
Okay. So then the Advantage plan, or those are separate companies too? They're not the same?
Well, it's not the same coverage, right? It's different coverages. But you've got companies that have a sweet spot in the supplemental world that are not the same companies that have a sweet spot in the Advantage program. There's clearly some crossover, but you got some companies, everybody's got to find a niche. Where do they want to compete? There's a couple of companies that are great on drug programs. They're not very good on supplements and they're not good on Advantage, but I'm going to use them for their drug programs because they're really good for the drug programs. Some companies here that are very good on Advantage, you know the name, but I would dissuade you from doing their Medicare supplements because they do that as a sideline. They don't really do it as their major business. You want to find people whose major business is here or here or here. And that's what we can help you decipher. We really can. You got to look at the track record of the companies.
So what happens when someone is turning 65, but they haven't yet completed their full 40 quarters in Social Security?
Then I would suggest you continue to work or have a spouse that you can apply for and qualify up underneath your spousal benefit for that 40 quarters. If you or your spouse have worked 40 quarters, you would qualify for the Medicare benefit. Otherwise, you're right. If you haven't worked 40 quarters, they can charge you for the Medicare Part A and they stick it to you on the A. It's very expensive. What should be it's a zero payment as long as you've worked at least 40 quarters. If you're close, you should tough it out and get the quarters in to be able to qualify for the A.
But then you have to take Medicare at 65 and then you don't?
You do not, no. If you continue to work and you have creditable coverage through work, what's creditable coverage? More than 20 people work there. You can continue on that work while you rev up your quarters. And because of that creditable coverage, you've delayed your necessity of activating A and B until you're darn good and ready down the road without penalty or delay because you had creditable coverage.
And to show proof,
You have to show proof, you bet.
what is that, paycheck or?
Well, you're going to have discharge papers from your employer. You're going to have every year, and save these because every year your insurance company sends you, your employer sends you a certificate of creditable coverage. Keep those on file. We had the guy who was 76 and he had had 3 jobs since he turned 65 to 76. That was a nightmare because he was like, no, I was covered. They're not going to take your word for it. You have an honest face, but they're not going to take your word for it. It's like filing the IRMA appeal. They're not going to take your word for it. They're going to want proof that your income has dropped to lower what you're paying. So you got to protect yourself at all times. Okay, please.
One more question regarding the same situation I was talking about. What if your current insurance is through the Affordable Care Act? And then you turn 65, but you are working, but you don't have an employer or you don't have the insurance through the.
Working is only part of the equation. It's working and having insurance through the employer that's creditable coverage. If you're on the Affordable Care Act and you're turning 65, look out because the Affordable Care Act stops the month that you turn 65.
Okay.
Then we're game on and we got to go get our Medicare. And you wouldn't want to pass on it. What you could do is keep working to get your quarters, but you're gonna have to pay for A and B in the meantime. And that gets spendy, but even paying for A and B and a supplement or an Advantage program would still be, in my estimation, less, well, it depends, on the Affordable Care Act. If you're getting a subsidy, the government gives folks insurance, only the government makes something so expensive that then they give you back tax dollars to pay for it. That's what they're doing with the Affordable Care Act. They're paying subsidies to lower your premiums. So that means that the Medicare thing could be more expensive. But for most guys that are coming to the world of Medicare, Cobra, if it's a choice of Cobra or Medicare, even paying the maximum, it's still a better value.
You mentioned that you are on affordable care yourself, so you're not getting social security, so you're gonna be around for at least 5 more years?
Yeah.
Okay.
We've got an office in Lyle. We've got several employees. We're licensed in multiple states. Think of any state where somebody you know has moved to. Other than New York and Maine, we've got the states that we help people with, but yeah, we're at it. We're going to be at it. We enjoy what we do. It's a lot of fun. It's what I call a karma-based business. If you do what's right for people, I mean, here tonight, I don't want your phone number. I don't want your email address. I'm not asking for any of that. Take a card. We have a number of seminars that are still coming up. First time you go through this, my God, there's a lot. But the second time you come through it, wait a second, now I get what he's talking about. And somebody will ask a question, you'll say, oh, that's a dumb question, I know that. Somebody asks a question, you go, I know that. Somebody asks a question, you go, that's a good question, I didn't even think about that. Every time through, you learn a little bit more, and that's what's so important here. I'm not gonna, but if I get hit by a bus tomorrow, that's not the issue. You know enough now to investigate what you got. You know enough to look at it every year. You know to keep it on a short leash. If you don't, it'll run away from you. And at that point, I mean, I always say it's your patriotic right to spend too much money on insurance. I don't think that's a good idea. I think making smart decisions initially and then investigating it as we move down the road. Okay. So again, please.
You said that your clients don't have to pay your fees. Who does pay your fees?
The insurance companies, just like your automobile insurance or your homeowners, those guys are all getting paid commissions by the insurance companies. The difference is there's no charge to you for our services and the pricing is exactly the same. The question is, can somebody make it understandable for you or you're just going through an 800 number? The idea there is that we want to win your business and keep you for years to come. The biggest thing we hope for is that you tell friends, hey, there's a guy you should talk to. The problem is you come to Medicare, everybody wants to tell you what to do. That's not as good as somebody who says, hey, I got a guy. You need to talk to this guy, see what he's got to say. Okay. All right, you guys. I'm going to say thank you very much for coming. I appreciate it. All of the thousands online, we appreciate you. If you got any other questions, I'm here, but I will dismiss you, please.
Oh, one question. I am 8 years older than my wife. Okay, I'm on her insurance.
You're a
Okay.
kept man. I knew I liked you.
Yeah. So I'm an attorney, 65, but she's going to work, for more years.
Okay.
So I'm on her insurance company. So we got to decide if it's smarter to me to stay on her insurance company
It's a great idea.
or to jump.
Great idea. Let's sit down and look at that. I would look at this I'd look in 3 stages. First thing, what's your network? I gotta ask that because Medicare wins. I don't care how good your network is, Medicare is gonna blow it away. 2, what's your out-of-pocket maximum? That's a gimme. I can put you in a supplement that has a $233 annual deductible. After that, MRI, CAT scan, X-ray, iron lung, kidney transplant, all covered. So I win 2 out of 3. But then the important one, what does she pay to have you on her coverage? You'd think it's a 50-50 split. You would be wrong. She's probably, whatever she's paying, she's 1/3 of that. You're 2/3 of that. Over under with original Medicare and a supplement and a drug program, just easy math, hand grenades. Going to run you between the Part B and the drug and the supplement. You're looking at about $300 a month, maybe less, for dramatically better coverage. And that's the G. Let's talk N. Or let's talk this thing called Advantage, which looks in all phases very similar to your group insurance. You've got a network, you got co-payments, you got an out-of-pocket maximum. And there you could potentially be paying $170 a month. But when you see what the out-of-pocket maximum is, most people don't know that because they've never run into it. If you run into it, it's too late. You ran into it, sorry. But most people don't realize that their insurance doesn't pick up everything usually until you're at like $4,000, $5,000, $6,000. Here, it could be $3,900. Could be worth looking at. But we do that all the time. And that's the beauty of Medicare, because remember, we're going to break you up. You have the ability to do something, she can continue on, but we can customize a package of benefits for you. You know, you're not you, but somebody in your situation, pending a knee replacement or a hip replacement. Oh my Lord, don't eat the $5,000 deductible on your employer plan. Come over here, activate this. You could potentially save money and improve your coverage. But that's what we like to look at. That's what makes it fun.
Gotcha.
All right, cool.
So sometimes it's better to, instead of going with your employer's plan, to see what you have to offer separately. Because a lot of
Definitely,
times employer plans are so much more money.
they can be. And I see both ends of the spectrum. I had clients about 6 weeks ago, lay the whole thing out. They're looking at the N, husband and wife. This whole thing together for the 2 of them was about $550 a month total for the 2 of them. She breaks into tears. I'm like, I'm sorry. What did I say? Oh, they're on FedEx insurance.
Yeah.
He's not paid for insurance his entire 23-year career. Well, I'm sorry, that's delusional. Everybody pays something for insurance, but not them. So she was coming at it from zero. My favorite is when I have people coming off the Affordable Care Act or coming off a COBRA. They're dropping $2,000 a month. And I can improve your coverage, lower your out-of-pocket, give you a better network, and bring you down by 75%. That's a pretty good feeling. Makes them happy. All right, class dismissed. Do you have your Scantrons and your number 2 pencils, please? Thank you very much for coming. I appreciate it.